I'm gonna just package this all up as rumor, but it's news, and it comes from the Hollywood Reporter, so it's not like it's coming from us or from another site that's not really reputable or whatever. This is not rumor mill, Reddit forum type stuff. This is like, a pretty reputable site, the Hollywood Reporter. But we have to state that it's rumor because there's nothing official. But back in 2022, it was announced that Shawn Levy and Jonathan Tropper were developing a Star Wars film. And now it's announced that Ryan Gosling, one of the big A-list guys out there right now, you got, Ryan Reynolds, you've got Hugh Jackman, you've got some of, Chris Evans. Ryan Gosling is right there with these guys. He is now supposedly attached to this project. And he's a 3-time Oscar nominee, which I sort of forgotten that he was, one of those kind of things. He is also somebody who's just done a wide breadth of movies, The Notebook to comedy to, most recently like The Fall Guy. I mean, he's, an everyman actor, and now he's potentially going to be headed to a great, the great galaxy far, far away, which is really, really wild. So my guess is, the story in the Hollywood Reporter states that this could accelerate Shawn Levy's project into actually trumping some other things that he's currently working on as a producer and filmmaker, which is really cool. And we're going to talk a little bit about this, just in terms of what is Lucasfilm's plan, like, because even with this announcement, it just makes everything else that we've read confusing, because the only thing that's really in works is the recently wrapped Mandalorian and Grogu, which will come out next year. There's been talk of a Star Wars X with Rey, and Daisy Ridley coming back, and who's the filmmaker that's attached to that? Chinoy. I always
Yeah,
forget. Yeah,
I also forgot.
I don't want to
That was
butcher
my
it.
fault.
So yeah, no, that's okay. But like that project, I think is underway. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. We can get that in a second. But yeah, Ryan Gosling is attached to a Star Wars project, and um, you know that's super awesome. And so my guess is we'll get confirmation on this over the period of the next few weeks, or even probably by the end of the month, I would imagine, where this will become a little bit more of a firm, like, this is happening. But generally, you have to assume if the Hollywood Reporter's putting this out there, it's probably just getting ink dry and contracts probably developed and stuff like that. So this is big. I'm going to turn it over to you, Justin. But like, even when you think about the Force Awakens and the trilogy, the sequel trilogy, outside of like the original stars returning and maybe like Andy Serkis being attached to it, you knew he was going to be somebody cool. At the time, we didn't know Snoke. The actors that were associated with the sequel trilogy were not big names. Adam Driver was not a big name at the time. Daisy Ridley was a nobody. Um, I think the biggest actor was John Boyega, because he had just been in some stuff, and stuff that a lot of the people that are the audience of Star Wars had seen. But to get somebody like Ryan Gosling in Star Wars is really, really awesome. I mean, I
Yeah,
thought
this
Jude Law being in Skeleton Crew was cool. But like, Jude Law isn't as relevant today as he, was maybe 10, 12 years ago.
mhm.
Um, I'm even trying to think of some of the standalone, like Rogue One. There's some great character actors in that movie. But again, like, not an A-list star, like not a Brad Pitt or a
Right.
Tom Cruise or somebody like that. So, I mean, do you agree? Like, Ryan Gosling, this is kind of like a very interesting development. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the casting of this. I like the Ryan Gosling as an actor overall, and you need that star power, I think, to a certain extent. Star Wars itself is star power, but with everything that's happened with the Acolyte and
Hmm.
a lot of things around Star Wars. Like there's a little bit of negativity and a little bit of like toxicity that is rolling around in the Star Wars fandom right now. And I really want to get back to the point where of the excitement of like you just talked about that story with your wife of episode 7. Everybody was buzzing. It was like electric in the air. You could feel that people were excited about Star Wars. It was the same way with Phantom Menace. Like after that long period of no Star Wars, and we didn't think we were ever going to get it again. And then once
Mhm.
we got it, then people complained about it then. But that's neither here nor there. It was like that period of time when it was everyone was anticipating and looking forward to it. I want to get back to those times of Star Wars where it's just when you say Star Wars, it means something and it has like this weight attached to it. So that's what I really like about this rumor. And once I think it will be officially announced by Star Wars, I think that is a big deal. And then Shawn Levy coming off of Wolverine and Deadpool, I think he's on a hot streak right now. I want to see what he does. He's not my favorite filmmaker. Things that he's done in the past have been fine for me. I've enjoyed them, but I haven't loved anything that he's really done. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping this Star Wars project, whatever it is, has like some meat on it, and the combination hopefully will be a good one. Those two working together. I looked it up while we were talking. Charmin Obaid Chinoy is the
That's
director that we were thinking of.
Yeah, and it's an
But
untitled New Jedi Order film. That was what was confirmed in the announcement, but there's not been a release date set that I'm aware of. We just know that it's following Rey, New Jedi Order, set 15 years after Rise of Skywalker, and it's in pre-production. So, um, I think this is a good time to maybe go into this part of this, which is as much as I love this story and the news, it just brings a bunch of confusion around Lucasfilm's direction around the Star Wars, you know, sort of IP, right? I think we're so used to now with James Gunn and Peter Safran and the DC studios and then Kevin Feige and Marvel that there's always this sort of linear path that we're headed to. You know, hey, we're headed to this Avengers movie or we're headed to this chapter 1, you know, gods and monsters, right? Like with Star Wars, it feels a little bit more like spaghetti at the wall and seeing what
mm,
sticks. And you know, which just seems so odd. And I don't want to get into this, you know, Disney's ruining the franchise and it's all Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and fire everybody and give George Lucas back the franchise and we'll be in better shape. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. There's plenty of other people that have already gone down that and said what they needed to say there. But, you know, it is confusing. I mean, so you've got Mandalorian and Grogu we referenced earlier that's coming out next year. um, this new Jedi Order film. You got James Mangold coming off of um, the Dawn of Destiny, Dial of Destiny, Indiana Jones movie. He's doing the Dawn of the Jedi, which will go back and kind of show the origins of the Jedi and the Dawn of the Jedi era.
which I'm really
Um,
excited about.
really excited about that because I mean, you got to hope that that's going to lead us into Knights of the Old Republic and all that kind of
Ooh
stuff, which
wee.
everybody's been wanting that. It's got to
Mm.
happen. We know that Filoni is also setting up what I would call a sequel, I guess, to The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is supposed to be this new Republic movie that's going to, you know, sort of wrap up all of the interconnected stories from Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and all that set during the New Republic era. So my guess is that's going to come out sometime in 2027, 2028, somewhere in that range. So you do have a little bit of that. Okay, well, that's connected to some stuff, and there seems to be a plan there. Taika Waititi, he got a film announced like it feels like a decade ago, um, and we haven't heard any um, updates on it. We know it's still in development. It's I guess a one-off film that he's doing with Christy Wilson Cairns. You know, we were promised a Lando series on Disney Plus, and you know, we know that Donald Glover's writing that script with his brother Stephen Glover. But I mean, again, when is that going to come out? When are we going to see that? the Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron. I mean, that was a big announcement. She was in the Top Gun jet plane with the helmet and talking about how her father was a naval officer or a pilot or something like that. And she wanted to do this big Rogue Squadron thing, and then it just got like derailed because of Wonder Woman. But is she coming back? And then the Shawn Levy thing came up back in 2022, and then to end the last thing, Simon Kinberg's doing a bunch of stuff, and supposedly writing a new trilogy. That was a big announcement that came last year in November. And then you got Ryan Johnson. Is his stuff that he developed during the making of The Last Jedi? Are we ever going to see that? What is it? So you got like these 10 sort of various stage development Star Wars movie projects. And I don't know how any of them connect. I don't know what any of them are. And I just think that's bad. I think that's bad for the brand. I think that's bad for Star Wars. And I'm sorry, but there's not enough Ryan Gosling announcement that can sort of turn my attention away from that. If anything, it kind of invites more conversation about this, because it's like, what are we doing? Um, you know, because even in the story about Ryan Johnson and this Shawn Levy movie is that it's supposed to be a one-off, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and it's like, is Ryan Gosling really signing up for a one-off Star Wars movie? Like, that seems kind of odd, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What's your take on this, Justin? I feel like I set it up with all of these things, but like it just seems to be a very confusing time for Kathleen Kennedy and the Lucasfilm folks.
Yeah, I really wish that they would be more transparent and let us know what are the plans, because going from show to show, going from movie to movie, and not knowing what the plans are, that has been the most frustrating thing. And that even goes back to Force Awakens,
Yep.
where I didn't feel like there was a plan from the start for the trilogy. And it ended up feeling like all three movies were different. Like there wasn't a cohesive narrative to all three of them. It was like they were all one-offs almost, even though they had the same characters and they were following a story with them. It just never felt like everyone was on the same page. So that's what it's kind of felt like with these Disney Plus TV shows. Also, I would like something, and for better or for worse, I think Marvel has kind of trained me to want this whole universe to connect and the next thing to lead to the next thing. I think there's pros and cons of that. There's good and there's bad of that, but I like that cohesive storyline. I like the everything fitting together. So
Yeah.
I just would like Star Wars to have a game plan, and that one, the Patty Jenkins thing that you were talking about, where she got into the F-16 or whatever it was. I felt like at that point they were like, "Hey, we got a roadmap, we got all these things," and
They had
then
it. Yeah.
it
They,
just kind of fell apart.
they had the whole, okay, we're going to do the saga films. We're going to do the Star Wars story, right? That was back when, if it wasn't a saga movie, it was going to be called a Star Wars story. And it was going to kind of be these little one off, like, go like filler things. And that, I thought that model was actually smart. And then they just completely abandoned it simply because they thought the Solo movie was not great.
Yeah,
And Rogue One was amazing. Everybody still talks about Rogue One probably being the best thing that Disney's done outside of Andor with the franchise. So it's like, yeah, we've had some misses. The Acolyte was just what it was, But we're coming off of Skeleton Crew. We talked about that. You can listen to our episodes here on Trust the Force, where we've dove into that and talked about such all the amazing things that we love about that show. I just think there's an opportunity where it's a new year. It's 2025. We got Star Wars Celebration coming up again. When is that? In May, I think. Or is it coming up earlier
yes.
than that?
Oh,
Yeah,
April.
it's
I'm sorry, April.
April. Yeah,
Yep.
so it's coming
Hmm.
up. I hope that there's going to be a little bit of organization to the chaos that comes out of that, and to use Celebration as a way to do that. To put the new board on the screen like Feige does and says, okay, here's where we're headed. You know, and there's how these things are connected. Um, and this is what the slate looks like. Number one, that's going to get us fans excited new things to talk about, and we'll finally have some transparency around where these things are at and when we're actually going to see these tent poles, right? Then it becomes the speculation and complaining and whining about what we're not getting versus what we are getting. But that's part of being a fan, and it's part of the deal with Star Wars. You know, but yeah, we need that. We need that as fans.
Yes.
But in the meantime, we got a little bit of stuff. Ryan Gosling, and it does. This is why this news also brings a lot more credence to it being more than rumor. Is they're probably trying to lock all this down so that
Mm.
Ryan Gosling can show up at Celebration, and they could probably talk
Ooh.
more about what this movie is. And because again, the article seemed to very much say that this is going to accelerate the development of this project, to the point where you've got Mandalorian Grogu coming out in May next year. This could be a December release next year, right? Like set to go into production now, potentially. So that's a fascinating thing. And you got to think that this movie must be pretty interesting for Ryan Gosling to want to attach himself to the product. So that does bring me speculation about the script, the story, where is it set, what era of Star Wars are we going to set this thing in, who's he going to play, maybe it's Shadows of
Yeah.
the Empire, maybe he's Dash Rendar. That's what I'm hoping. So
That would be great. And
yeah,
like I said, I just really want them to have a focused plan, to have a Kevin Feige almost type where they can say, okay, this is, and we thought Dave Filoni was going to be that, but
yeah,
it feels like he's often doing his own thing, but he's not overseeing everything like we thought when he got named his position that he's in right now. And so hopefully in the future we'll get some more cohesiveness. But this is interesting news and interesting casting for sure, because Ryan Gosling is one of the bigger names out there, and I want to see what he can do in a galaxy far, far away. So this is going to be some very interesting times we have coming up. But let's talk about this when Celebration happens, Celebration Japan, which I can't wait for. Man, I wish we were going to that.
I
But
know.
let's see what happens. They're always pretty good about their live streams on YouTube, so
Yep.
they have like all the interviews and all the announcements and stuff. So we'll see what happens. But man, Kevin Cole, I'm thrilled that you are here with us on Trust in the Force. I can't wait to talk Andor with you. Can't wait to talk more Star Wars in the future. Um, Anything else you want to say to our fine folks
Yeah,
and
I'm going to
friends?
tease the Andor stuff we're going to talk about. So
Ooh,
Justin and I
yeah.
have been planning a Andor season 1 recap that we're going to be releasing. I'm not sure what the actual cadence of, but the way we're going to do this is we're kind of looking at Andor in stages, like in groupings, right? Like you have um, each of the different arcs of the season 1 of Andor. You have the Pharynx introduction, which is the first 3 episodes. You have the Aldani heist arc, which is episodes 4 through 6, and then you've got the prison arc 7 through 10, and then you have the Pharynx finale. So we're gonna kind of stage out our recaps into these sort of arcs because they're really compelling when you sort of break out the season in this way. And so I'm really excited for Justin and I to dive into that and you know gear us up and hype us up for season 2 of Andor, which is coming out very soon, April as well. So lots of good Star Wars stuff we're paving the way for in April,
Yes.
and I'm sure we'll have Mr. Tim back whenever he's available to talk about all the books and publication stuff. As those things drop. And yeah, trust in the Force. Come here for all of your trust in Star Wars entertainment, news, rumors, and just great conversation. And that's all I wanted to say. I'm really excited to be here and just be part of the show.
Yeah. Well, if you are excited about this Ryan Gosling news, let us know in the comments down below. We're always loving everything that you guys tell us and all the feedback that you give us. Don't forget to come back to Trust in the Force next week as well.
Subscribe,
Oh, yeah, subscribe. Make
write
sure you've got the
reviews.
notification turned on, all the things. We love talking to you. We love hearing from you. And we would always be honored if you would join us.
trust